Thank you so much. You know, as I was driving up here with my wife Julie, I was reflecting on the whole idea, the question, you know, is what we do art? And coming to the Visionary Arts Museum, which is a place I've admired for so long, first thing I thought is, well, what really separates this museum from others is that the artists here have a different way of looking at the world, right? We all see the same things, and yet they're able to sort of find art in things we may not have found art in, or seen a perspective that we hadn't always seen, even though it's been in front of us. And I think where I think I and Judy Wicks, who I'm honored to be here with, have been around food now for 2 decades, and I think we've part of it is sort of we all you know live in this consumer economy. We all are part of it, and yet we also can see a different way to go, a way that it should be. And I want to share a little bit about some of the things I've been doing that really is part of a movement. And I think it's an especially opportune time to talk about it because it's such an ironic moment in our economy where consumers have never been more empowered to make decisions, both to have the information, to make choices that really can change the world, and at the same time, all the more important because I think there's a recognition that we can no longer, maybe we never could rely on the government to make those changes happen, but I think now, we all accepted, okay, the government is not going to make changes to our health or to our environment in a way that we might hope. And so on the one hand, you could feel unempowered. On the other hand, you could sort of realize this power we've always had, every day, every meal, to literally, you know, choose what we put in our bodies for a different future. One of my board members early on when I started Honest Tea was the CEO of Timberland, the footwear and apparel company, and he came to visit me in Bethesda, and we were walking down the street, and he saw someone wearing a Timberland shirt. He said, Think how important that relationship is. Think how much trust there has to be for this person to put my product on their body. And I thought about it and I said, wow, people take our product and put it in their body. I mean, it couldn't be any more trust, it couldn't be any more important than that. And so as we've been building, and I've now been expanding into not just tea, it really has helped me appreciate there really is this opportunity to connect with people. And what's so striking is the way our food system developed, it was literally designed to disconnect you from nature, from animals, from everything that you do put in your body. It has been designed to disconnect you as much as possible. And so what's nice and exciting now is we are trying to find ways to reconnect people to that. But in the beginning, it reminds me of a joke. So there's a guy driving on the highway. It's the Beltway, so it's crowded. And on the way home, his wife calls him. She says, "Dear, please be careful. I just listened to the traffic report, and then there's some moron, you know, driving the opposite way against all the traffic." He said, "One moron? There's like 200 morons driving the opposite way on the traffic." And I think we probably both felt like that moron early on. Like, how come we're trying to do, the system is all, you know, focused on, you know, sort of most profit, most easily processed, and how come when we try to go back to connect with local communities or local suppliers or really help connect people to earth, that's not where people were. And what's so exciting, and one reason Honest Tea is still growing and still relevant, is because people are now coming to that perspective. So just quickly, I'll share with you a bit about the story of Honest Tea, and then I want to put it against a bigger backdrop. First, I want to help everybody appreciate sort of the moment we're at. Whoops, let's see, we have some slides we'll go to. Why is this important? And you can think about it from the environmental thing. I actually, the first impetus for me to launch Honest Tea was a health perspective, which was, so I ran track in college and I ran in high school, and I was always thirsty. And I always felt like the drinks out there were just too sweet. Why wasn't there anything with 1 or 2 teaspoons of sugar instead of 5 or 6 teaspoons of sugar, which was really what everything had at the time? And so when we think about health and we think about where people are, it comes to mind, I have 2 Chinese proverbs I'm going to share with you. They're both what we call our bottle cap quotes, the quotes we put under our caps at Honest Tea, or in the other bottles inside the label. And it says, if we don't change the direction we are headed, we will end up where we are going. Which is a truism, of course. But when you look at where we're going, it is absolutely the wrong direction. So every 5 years, the United Nations ranks the average life expectancy of all the countries in the world. So there's about 200 countries in the world. And before I tell you where the United States falls, keep in mind we're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. We have more knowledge of science and medicine and nutrition than any civilization has ever had. But when the UN does their ranking, and they just did the most recent one in 2015, the country with the highest life expectancy was Japan. Number 2 was Italy. So where's the United States? 42. It's the kind of thing that, obviously it's shameful. We literally have squandered our fortune. We have the ability to lead healthier, more fulfilling lives, and we are not. And so you can say it's obviously our lifestyle, it's our diet, it's our lack of connection to the natural world, our lack of connection to each other. There's obviously a lot of different factors involved. At the same time, you could look at it and say that is an amazing business opportunity, right? To help the wealthiest nation, people with the highest disposable income, lead healthier, higher quality of life. It's almost a no-brainer. All you have to do is give them the products, the recipes to do that. And so the story of Honest Tea started with, in business school, I was at the Yale School of Management. We were doing a case study of the beverage industry with my professor, Barry Nelbuff, and when he asked, is there anything missing? And how can there already be anything missing, right? We walked through the grocery aisles, there were walls of beverages, right? But back in 1995, they almost all had the same ingredients. They almost all had the same calorie profile. We said, well, why isn't somebody making, a drink with a little bit less sugar or no sugar? And so Barry was excited at the time. He wanted to do something about it. I was in my second year of business school. I said, hey, it's a neat idea. I got to go find a job. And Julie and I moved down to Bethesda, where I started working for Calvert, the mutual fund company that does social responsible investing. And I happened to go to New York on behalf of Calvert and give a presentation. And after the presentation, I went for a run. And after the run, I was thirsty. And I went to a beverage cooler. And I said, there's nothing here. And I was with a teammate of mine from the track team. He said, what do you mean there's nothing here? There's all these beverages. I said, there's a lot of beverages, but there's no choice. And so I reached out to Barry, and I said, I think I'm ready to do something about this. And so Barry had just come back from India, where he'd been studying the tea industry, and he had come up with the name Honest Tea, which for me was kind of like the dawn breaking. I said, wow, that's an amazing name. Gives you an automatic license to incorporate a commitment to social responsibility as you make the product. And so we filed for the trademark. There's a funny story, though. We filed for 2 different ways. We filed for Honest Tea as 2 words, but we also filed for HONESTEA. And after that trademark application went through, we heard back from Nestee's trademark lawyer who said, we've seen your application to market this product called Ho Nestea, and we're not comfortable with that. And I said, we're not comfortable marketing a product called Ho Nestea either. We will withdraw that application if you let us keep the Honest Tea. And so we got to the mark, and I left my job at Calvert. I managed to get an appointment with the local Whole Foods buying office, which is just in Rockville. And I went in with 5 thermoses of tea that we had brewed in my kitchen, and I got an empty snap, pasted a label on, and I went to the buyer and I said, I want to sell this in your store. And the buyer said, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. We'll take 15,000 bottles, which was terrifying because we never made it anywhere but our kitchen. And I literally, we found a bottling plant up in Buffalo, New York, and I still vividly remember the drive because I had to come through Baltimore to pick up the spices. We had a chai recipe, and they had just freshly ground the spices at a place called Van Spices. I drove up with a Saturn station wagon filled with spices, and we never got that Saturn station wagon permanently smelled like a spice wagon. Anyway, we made our first product, we delivered to Whole Foods, and all we did that first summer was just give out samples of tea. And by the end of that summer, we became the best-selling tea in the 17 Whole Foods stores. And then we took that growth to go to other Whole Foods regions and other natural food stores. And by about 2004, we'd become the best-selling tea in the natural foods industry. And then, as Rebecca mentioned, we were approached by Coca-Cola and other companies. And we reached a point where we said, well, what's the goal here? Are we trying to sell healthy food to healthy people, which is great, and we love healthy people, we wish everyone were healthy, or do we want to try to democratize organics? Do we want to make these products available to everybody, not just to the wealthy and the people who live on the coast, but really wherever people buy a beverage? Could we make organic, lower calorie drinks available? And so in 2008, we took in an investment from Coca-Cola. They bought 40% of the company. And then in 2011, Coca-Cola bought the rest of the company. And what's to me most interesting, and actually probably most satisfying, is what's happened since then. So the first thing was growth. We were in about 15,000 stores before Coke invested. Today we're in over 130,000 stores. We've always been in the natural food stores, and that's obviously our base where we feel the deepest connection. But just in the past few years, we've now expanded our distribution to chains like Wendy's, Subway, and Chick-fil-A. All places where, as far as I know, most people don't go looking for organic products. And yet these fair trade, low-calorie products are made available to them in a way that is in a line price, just as affordable, just as accessible as the other non-organic alternatives. But the other thing that's exciting for me is that we continue to focus on impact. So Honest Tea was the first to make organic bottled tea. We were also the first to make fair trade bottled tea, which means that when we buy tea leaves, we pay a premium with every pound we buy, so it goes back to the communities to reinvest, whether it's in healthcare or schools or even in their infrastructure. But what's nice is that when Coke first invested, we were only in about 40% of our teas were fair trade. It wasn't until after Coca-Cola bought the company that we were able to make all of our tea fair trade. And just last year, we were able to convert our entire sugar supply chain over to fair trade as well. So this is now, thank you, it's an exciting step. It means now that we've given more than $1 million back into these communities, which of course, and when you think about tea and sugar, these are commodities that are often produced in some of the poorest countries in the world. So to be able to put back $1 million into these communities really has an impact. And I thought it's not exactly art, but it is really beautiful to see. I wanted to show you just a short video about how we connect with these communities in this case, the sugar supply community in Paraguay, and to see how, what our investments mean, and actually what it means, what your purchases, when you invest in organic and fair trade, how it connects to the communities we source from. It's been so fun is to see this grow and to know that when we are able to grow this way, we're impacting both the people who consume it, but also the communities. And one of the we're at a moment now with Honest Tea where we're just now starting to expand globally. So next month I'll be going to Europe to launch the brand there. And this is one of the advantages of being able to be part of a global beverage company. Just quickly now, I want to actually take a diversion because we'll go through that. One of the fun examples of how innovation happens is just by looking and living the way we do. So one of the best innovations we've ever made is a product called Honest Kids. It started when we have 3 sons, and I was making lunch for my sons one day, which at that time, when they were in middle school, meant me putting things in their lunchbox. And our middle son, Ellie, said, "Well, Dad, how come you sell healthy drinks to grown-ups, but these drink pouches you put in my lunchbox are really sugary?" And I looked, and they had more sugar per ounce in one of those blue pouches than there was in a can of soda, and that's what I was putting in my son's lunchbox. And it's like, wow, that is so obvious. Why don't we just take organic ingredients, and instead of 100 calories per pouch, let's make it 40 calories per pouch. And then when Coca-Cola bought in, we were able to take the sugar out entirely and sweeten it only with fruit juice. And Honest Kids now is really one of the fastest growing kids brands out there. And what's so neat is that all of the competitors, whether it's Capri Sun or Juicy Juice, have all now moved to lower calorie organic offerings. And so there's a great quote by the head of Patagonia. She said, the goal is to make it so your competitors find it uncomfortable not to follow you. And it's really fun to see that happen. So what's happening with Honest Tea is a bit about the undoing of food. It's the simplifying, connecting people to the source, more authentic ingredients, and that's an exciting thing to be part of. But there's a separate, equally exciting trend happening, which is the redoing of food, where we look at what's going on in food and we find a shortcoming of a product. And we think, all right, how can we improve that? Can we do better? And one of the areas that I've been working on really intensively over the past few years is to look at the meat category. And you can look at the shortcomings of the meat industry, whether it is the environmental footprint, the health impact on us, and of course the consequences of a culture that literally kills billions of living creatures, sentient creatures, over the course of the year. What's an effective way to address that? We've been vegetarian for 13 years as a family, but it always has been, we have no regrets about the decision, except that sometimes at meals it's hard to find satisfying alternatives. The biggest area of disappointment had been around burgers. If you were trying to devise a strategy to discourage people to be vegetarian, you could not do much better than the veggie burger. I was at a camp last summer speaking, and I spoke to the kids. How many have tasted a veggie burger? And all the kids were like, oh! So we thought, well, what if we could make a burger that perfectly replicates the taste and texture and sensory experience of a cow-based burger? And so a few years ago, I joined a company that has become, it's called Beyond Meat. And we've just launched this product called the Beyond Burger. And it is the first plant-based burger to be carried in the meat section at Whole Foods. And it really is, it's a game changer. So it's funny, the meat buyer for Whole Foods actually lives in the Eastern Shore. And we went over, we drove there. First he said, well, why do I even want to meet with you? I don't eat veggie burgers, I don't buy veggie burgers. Because we said we want this carried in the meat section, not in the freezer. But when he put it on a grill and it started to sizzle, and then he smelled it and then he tasted it, he said, okay, I get this. And so here's the perspective on it. There's only about 5% of the population that's vegan or vegetarian. And those are my people, I'm proud to be one of them. But if we want to change what happens in the diet, we can't sell to just 5% of the population. We have to reach everybody. And I was thinking about what, that number, that 5% of the population has stayed that way for decades. What happens is a lot of churn. People come in college, they want to be vegetarian, vegan, then they get out of college and like, hey, I need some good food, and they leave it. But if the goal is to double the number of people who are vegetarian, you could try to run a campaign, but that's been going on for a while. On the other hand, if you can make a product that is as good as this product, and you can get every American family to have one more plant-based meal per week, that's 1 out of 21 meals, that's basically 5%, we could effectively equivalent to double the number of vegetarians in the population. So this is a really fun one. I encourage, if you haven't tried it, to go out and try it. It is at Whole Foods in the meat section, or sometimes they carry it with the alternative refrigerated section. But anyway, that's one thing that's exciting. Another thing that I've been involved in, also in the redoing of food, is a product called Ripple. So plant-based dairy, we've all seen the growth of almond milk and rice milk. Well, almond milk and rice milk basically have no protein. And you can't, while the taste of almond milk may be satisfying to people, you're not going to be, I don't think even nutritionally, you should try to replace something that has health benefits with something that lacks those benefits. And so what Ripple is made of also the same yellow pea protein, but it has the same protein level as milk. And also the smooth and creaminess as well. This is also available at Whole Foods, so it's exciting to see that one grow. And I want to share with you one last innovation and then one last big idea. So just earlier, I guess last month now, we launched something at Honest Tea called Honest Sport. And it is, I have to say, we launched at the Expo West in California, this natural product show. And my first impulse when I launched it was embarrassment. Like, I just realized, how could we miss this? I've been in this world the whole time. I even told you in the story of Honest Tea how it was a run that sort of catalyzed the thinking to launch Honest Tea. And I thought, wait a minute, we're in the health and wellness category. We're interacting with people like Ernestine who think about what they put in their body every day, who are attuned to the environmental and nutritional impact of their choices, and yet the people who exercise have only had sports drinks with blue number red and a blue number 4 and red number 3 ingredients that don't meet the definition of natural and definitely don't meet the definition of organic. To launch an organic sports drink, which we're just launching now, also available only at Whole Foods right now, is something we're really excited about, a next step. So when I think about what gives me hope, what gives me optimism, is consumers have never been more connected than before. There's never been a moment where entrepreneurs have been so empowered to make change happen. There's never been a moment where big companies understand the old way is gone. It's not worth trying to change it. They have to adapt to a different future. And so 19 years ago when I started Honest Tea, it was a challenging time. It was hard to do. It was hard to build a mission-driven business in a world that didn't necessarily value that. And it's still challenging. I don't want to underemphasize the challenge in going against the prevailing diet, the prevailing way the economy works, but it's absolutely the work worth doing. And just in closing, I'll share with you a quote that's on our wall at Honest Tea's office. Those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the people doing it. Thank you very much.